All right, now let's do this thing. So for those who are new to my channel or my Instagram or my Facebook, my name is Stacy. I am a nonprofit consultant and I help small to mid-sized nonprofits grow their impact and revenue generation potential through strategic planning and capacity building. Now, if you're not familiar with these terms, then you definitely need to stick around and learn it a little bit more through my products and some of my services to get to the level that you need to. If you are a nonprofit organization that's been doing the work, that's been in the trenches, and you feel like you're just pulling teeth or just trying to make it by, like we definitely need to work together and you need to have a consultant on hand to help you grow the business that you have on your hand. Because then essentially a lot of things, the one thing that nonprofits don't realize is your nonprofit is actually a business. And sometimes it takes more business acumen to generate the revenue that you want and to grow the impact that you're trying to grow because the objective point of view makes a big difference. So today we're going to talk about why your nonprofit, 3 reasons why your nonprofit may not be growing. And the one thing I want to say is your nonprofit isn't stuck per se. You just refuse to do what actually works because you feel comfortable doing what you're actually doing. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, what that looks like things you told yourself and things that are doing you a disservice, because at the end of the day, it is doing you a disservice when you keep yourself in the situation where you are comfortable with whatever you're doing right now, even if it's trash. Okay. So I want you to ask yourself, how many times have you said or told yourself, we are doing everything we can, but nothing is changing? Now, apparently not, because if you were doing everything you could, you wouldn't be stuck there, right? You would not be in the same position that you're in. You would be in a different position. So I want you to really like think back, is this the truth or is this a lie that I'm telling myself to make myself feel okay? Because then as humans, we do that a lot. We tell ourselves things to keep ourselves comfortable or to make ourselves or to keep ourselves at peace because we do not want to change. We do not want anything to be different within the work that we're doing. And it's the same within your job leading a nonprofit organization. And I talk a lot about mindset of nonprofit leaders because it's very important in how you govern and make an impact with your nonprofit organization, because oftentimes the leaders are the ones everybody else are looking to take action and to do things within a nonprofit organization. So if the leader has like a limited mindset about a lot of things and a scarcity mindset, then how are the other team members going to do the work a little bit better? Because then unless you have somebody like a development officer who is ready to do the work, well, even then, it's very hard to move forward if the person you're looking up to is not doing what they're supposed to do. Okay. So I want to challenge you because too many nonprofit leaders actually love to say they're stuck. They say there's no funding or there's no money out there, no support, no resources. We're doing everything we can for the community. We're doing all the work. But the truth is, you're stuck because you refuse to step outside of what feels comfortable. Because you too many people I hear of or tell me they don't like doing videos, they don't like going live, they don't like doing XYZ. But times have been changing. Whether you like it or not, times are changing, where we are living in a time where trust is a currency. Now, people need to trust you. They need to trust your organization more than ever. And if you're not willing to step outside of your comfort zone to get people to understand the work that you do and trust you in a level that's different than what you used to do, then you have a huge problem at hand because you need to remove yourself from your comfort zone and actually understand that times are evolving. We're living in a time where everybody just becomes complacent or just like not even resilient. They just adjust to whatever people tell them is going to happen. Because then I was having a conversation with somebody a few days ago where the DEI policy changes. It's like everybody is just assuming the position and getting ready to accept DEI changes. Nobody is fighting. Nobody is stepping out of their comfort zone to say, okay, this is not right. Like nobody's fighting because they are in a place where they do not want to rock the boat and they fear change. Like fear will get us to accept so many weird things. And it's the same thing here. Like the fear of not knowing what's going to happen keeps you stuck because you don't know how to be uncomfortable because you just don't know what you're doing. And it's okay. Sometimes you don't know what you're doing, and you need to understand that and embrace that and do it anyway. Because the magic happens in the ability to embrace that you do not know everything and do it anyway. Oh, these birds are flying outside my window. So, doing the same things over and over while expecting different results. Like we know the definition of that, right? The word that the word that encompasses this whole thing. It's insanity. But in this instance, doing the same things over and over while expecting different result doesn't mean you're stuck. It just means you're playing small. Okay. You're playing small and then blaming everybody and the environment, the political environment, like you're not the one in control of the actions you take or where your nonprofit is going. There's a reason that nonprofits that thrive, there's a reason that they have strategic plans. There's a reason that they put those in place is because they understand that they have a direction they're trying to go in, and there are certain actions they're gonna need to take to get there. So they create a plan, they craft a plan to ensure that they are actually making strides in that direction to ensure success, to ensure growth, to ensure sustainability. Right. But one thing that I want to make sure you remember, growth is going to require change. It's going to require discomfort. It's going to require strategy. And that's the one thing I want you to remember because a lot of you do not have a strategy in place. Too many nonprofits aren't struggling because they don't have access to funding or resources. They're struggling because they refuse to operate like a real business. They refuse to operate with the idea and intention that they are a business, and the only thing that's different here from traditional for-profit business is they have a tax exempt status, and the way they generate revenue needs to be a little bit more intentional and more creative. You need to be more creative about that. So these are things that I want you to think about. Okay. Now, that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. So if you are ready for this and you're catching the replay, drop a 1 in the comments. Let me know. #replay. Let me know you're here. If you're here live, #live. Let me know you're here. Like I said, this does wonders for the algorithm. And if this is a topic that you're ready for, definitely comment and engage because I want more people to know about this and understand the value of doing this and operating differently in your nonprofit. Now, first thing I'm going to say is that nonprofit leaders actually fear growth. Now, you might think, oh, that's ridiculous. I don't fear growth. I want to grow. Yeah, you fear growth. The reason I say that is that if you do not fear growth, now, why is it that every opportunity that comes your way for you to decide what strategy to put in place for your nonprofit organization, you make an excuse as to why you don't need it? Oh yeah, I looked up on Google. I know what I'm doing. I looked up on ChatGPT. I know what I'm doing. So if that was the case, like why is it in June 2025 you're probably going to have the same problem? Or why is it last year you had the same problem, in January this year you have the same problem? It's because nonprofit leaders actually fear growth or they fear failure. Like fear is a crippling issue that a lot of people go through, and I want you to realize that you're not exempt from that. A lot of us have this innate fear that we don't address, and a lot of our behaviors stem from that fear because it's easy for nonprofit leaders or whomever is responsible for that to say we just need more funding, but it's much harder to admit that we do not have the right strategy in place to grow. Like we do not have the tools that we need to grow. We do not have the knowledge needed for us to grow and to go in the right direction. A lot of nonprofit leaders will not admit that, and they prefer to stay quiet and prefer to stay marinating in their failure because they do not want to admit that they do not know what they're doing. And that in itself is sad because at the end of the day, if you're not willing to speak your truth and be very transparent. Well, with reason, because it's not everybody that needs to know that. You need to admit it to yourself and find someone that can help you grow. I don't care if it's a consultant or somebody on your board, but you need to be able to come to that realization that you don't know everything, okay? Growth is uncomfortable. It's going to force you to make new decisions. It's going to force you to let go of old habits and actually implement systems that scale and grow your nonprofit organization. And that's why too many nonprofits are staying in the cycle of barely getting by, where, oh, we're going to get this grant, we're going to do this project, we don't know how we're going to get our next money. There's a reason, because you refuse to make new decisions. You refuse to find new things that can actually move your organization to the next level, because you know what worked here and you blocked. It's like there's a block. Oh, this worked here right now. I don't need to learn anything new. It's like trying to tell. I'm going to give an example of my mom, because that's the only person. Like, my mom has been, like, all of us have been in the States for over, let me see, 20, like a while now, right? 20 years. But like English is, she still gets by, the nail on her pinky. Like, she understands. But in terms of learning English to the full of its, extent, she doesn't, because the only thing I kept hearing, oh, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And that's the problem with nonprofit leaders. It's like oftentimes the new tricks are what's going to get you to the next level. But if you're unwilling to learn new things that actually help you, you're going to be stuck in the same cycle over and over again. Every time there's a policy change or administration change, you're going to have an issue, because what happens is that it affects your bottom line. It's going to affect the grants you were able to secure because you got lucky. Like, there's some words or there are certain things that happen that benefit you. Now, when administration changes, like, what happens is that different people in power have different priorities, and they start using their power to attract a crowd that supports them, right? And at the end of the day, they don't care about who they're disappointing just because they have the majority support. Like, if you look at it, that's what's been happening. It's like a lot of things that are happening. Oh, let me shut my alarm. I think Instagram got out. Okay, I should be back on Instagram now. So it's understanding that policies are going to change. A lot of things are going to change, but it's a matter of how you move that's going to ensure that you do not have to, your nervous system doesn't have to be a wreck. It does not have to be all over the place when these things happen. Now, 82% of nonprofits, they actually don't have a documented growth strategy. Think about that. 82%. That's not even 42, not 50, 82% do not have a documented growth strategy. And that's from Nonprofit Quarterly. And that goes to show you that a lot of nonprofits that are in existence right now, 82% of them do not have a growth strategy on paper that actually helps them go to the next level. And that's very difficult to grasp in my end, because nonprofits, they are so needed in the community. They make such a difference. There are a lot of, considering I serve community-based organization the most, like, community-based organizations should have such a strong foothold in the community, and the fact that they're not putting themselves in line with growth, a growth strategy or a success route is a problem, because it's like you're planning to fail. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Essentially, that's what it is. And hey, Ricky, and over 50% of nonprofit leaders say they lack the capacity to scale, yet only 20% of them actively invest in professional development. Because then professional development, like, whether or not you will admit it, is very needed within your organization, because what you're trying to do with professional development, you need to increase the capacity of your organization. And that also includes the skills and knowledge of your staff. Because one thing that happens is, like, when your staff or the people on your team receive professional development, they have more tools and they know more about what to do. Because then oftentimes, like, people will start working for a nonprofit, they have no idea what they're doing. Okay, they just know that they love the mission, they want to help, they want to ensure that the organization succeeds, but they do not have all the tools or knowledge necessary to get the organization to the next level. So if 50% of nonprofit leaders do not have the capacity to scale, and only 20% of these leaders invest in professional development, think about the amount of them that are not actually in investing in capacity building, and why that's causing a stall in the growth of the nonprofit organization. Because they don't realize that if you do not have the capacity, oftentimes when you're applying for grants, they see that. They're gonna deny it. Like, it's literally something they look for and they score. Like, they look at the rubric and actually score this. So why is it that you are not thinking strategically about this and realizing that every small decision, well, every decision, big or small, within your nonprofit organization can make a difference if you're very intentional about it? Because you need the capacity to scale, you need the capacity to grow, you need strategy and intention to also grow. So these are the two things that I focus on, because if nonprofits are able to focus on long-term systems instead of short-term fundraising tactics, they're able to raise 3 times more revenue in the over 5 years. So long-term systems. So let's think about, like, do you have a system in place to encourage partnerships and continue building relationships? Like, do you have a system in place to ensure that? Are you tracking that? Are you making asks consistently of the partners that you're building and stuff like that to generate revenue or to raise more money? Like, these are things that you need to focus on. Do you have a grant calendar in place to ensure that you are applying for specific grants, that you have a calendar in place and you're not missing deadlines, that you're actually doing the work that you need? Like, for donorship, are you focusing on donor engagement, donor outreach? Do you have a system in place and an SOP in place to ensure that these are things that you're focusing on? These are very important. Let me try to share this video to my nonprofit navigator group because they need to know this too. So these are things that I want you to start developing SOPs for, to ensure that your nonprofit organization is actually in the right direction. So definitely look into doing the right things, taking the right action. So know your nonprofit isn't stuck. It's not just operating at the level like required for real growth. Like, you actually need to tap into other parts, other things, other strategies you have not explored to ensure that you are going in the right directions. Now, there are 3 top reasons that your nonprofit may not be growing that we're going to talk about today. And I want to make sure, like, before the end of this live, that you understand where I'm coming from, and that and that you fix that. Okay, fix it. Now, the first reason is that your focus is just on survival, not scalability. Like, oh, we need money to effectuate this program. Excuse me. We need money to effectuate this program. So you're only focused on surviving and funding one program instead of scaling your nonprofit to ensure that you're implementing other services and programs. So a lot of the nonprofit leaders are trapped in the scarcity mindset because they're operating like their nonprofit is in constant survival mode, right? It's not really in a position where it's trying to fundraise or do work or build partnerships or community outreach for anything else but just surviving. So you find these nonprofits, they're always scrambling for the next grant, the next donation, the next emergency fix, because that's what they focus on. Like, their focus is just on surviving. Like, when you're just trying to survive, what happens is that you're not going in the direction of growth. You cannot build a thriving nonprofit if you're only thinking about the next month instead of the next 5 years, because essentially you need to think about the next 5 years and not just the month ahead. Because if you're not thinking that far out, then what's happening is, like, when they say people live paycheck to paycheck, So it's that cycle that you're putting the nonprofit in. And by the end of the year, when it's time for somebody to keep working, you look at the account, you're like, oh my God, we got to fire you because we don't have the money for that. And that's not something you want to experience, because I will tell you, sometimes you have great staff and you have to let them go because your nonprofit organization does not have the funds or revenue to continue paying them. And that's unfortunate. Okay. So, like, stop operating for short term and start thinking about long-term stability, because what that does, it messes up the flow of your organization and makes it very difficult for you to have the capacity to grow and ask for bigger amounts of funds. Because like I was saying at the beginning, funders, grant reviewers, they look at sustainability. They want to see that your nonprofit is actually doing great and actually has an aspect of sustainability within itself for them to feel comfortable giving you more money. So focus on scalability and not just survival when you are leading your nonprofit organization or fundraising for a nonprofit organization, because it's going to make a heck of a difference. Now, the second reason is you're avoiding what actually works. Now, let's be honest. I want you to ask yourself, are you doing work that actually leads to funding and growth, or are you sticking to what's comfortable? I know we talked about that at the beginning, and that's what I want you to look at. Are you doing the work that leads to funding and growth? Now, you may say, oh, I asked 10 people this month for money. Only one of them gave. Is that the work? Is that all you need to do? Okay, too many nonprofits are wasting 80% of their time on activities that don't drive real results. Now, some of these, I'm going to give you some of these activities that are not driving real results, like you're posting with no aim, right, on social media, but never developing unrestricted, like never building an actual donor pipeline, because then you're posting everything on social media and you never have a call to action that's specific. None of your content actually leads to anything where you're asking people, where you're telling a story and asking people to join your email list or driving people to take action. That's what I mean by no aim. Like, you're posting on social media with no aim. Now, the other thing, you're writing endless grant proposals. You're paying people in favor and all these websites to write grant proposals for you, but never developing unrestricted revenue streams. Now, grants, I've said this, I will say this before, they are earned revenue. You have to do specific work for this money. You got to work for that money. It's just like another job, right? You have to perform to get that money. Now, unrestricted revenue streams, are you getting donations? Do you have fees for service? Do you have other ways of generating revenue that can be unrestricted? Now, there are other earned revenue streams, like if you get contracts and stuff, that's something different, but look into developing unrestricted revenue streams. And that's why I invite people to book a strategy session with me. Those are 90 minutes where we work on developing a strategy that works for your organization based on the goals that it has. So you can start implementing. You get an action plan. I email you an action plan and the recording. So definitely book your strategy session. I'm opening 4 additional slots for every week in the month of March. And I'm going to put the link in the comments before I forget, because then today is another busy day and I do not want to forget. And put it in the chat. It's also in my Stan Store. So for those who would like to schedule a session, go ahead and schedule one today. And the other thing I want to iterate, when 80% of the activities that you're focusing on don't lead to anything, right? Like relying on volunteers for critical operations instead of hiring a team that can execute. So let's say you're asking the volunteers to ask people to donate. That's not their job. They're not part of the team that can execute. Find people to hire, pay people to do that so they can focus on that, because the volunteers, oftentimes they can only work for you when they can work for you. You have to find someone dedicated to doing the work. Your organization may be volunteer run, but some of the critical staff, are you paying them? to the work because there's a level of continuity and consistency that comes with having people on staff for critical activity, critical operation. So let's say development, let's say governance, so like volunteer recruitment or coordination, because you may have volunteers that run that help with everything in the organization, but you need somebody to manage these volunteers. And it's hard for you to have a volunteer manage a volunteer throughout their life cycle or throughout their lives because they don't work for you. Essentially, they can leave at any time, right? Like, sure, you can have an SOP in place for volunteer coordination, but imagine the amount of starting over you're going to have to do for that. So if you're doing things that feel safe but aren't generating revenue, remember you're only playing small. So you need to start, you can scale if you prioritize revenue generating activities. There are things like donor retention strategies. Those are very important for you to focus on because instead of always chasing new donors, do you have people that donated before that you can foster a relationship with them, build a relationship with them, engage with them consistently, and keep them informed of what's going on instead of always chasing new donors? Do you have high impact partnerships within your organization instead of random networking? Now, did you look at your local government to see if there were departments like the community engagement department, other departments within your local or city government to see if there's somebody within the government you need to meet because those high impact partnerships will make a difference. Is there a foundation or a corporation in your area that supports nonprofit that does the work? Because one thing I know yesterday I met with this wonderful woman who leads a organization in California and around where I am that's defending the cause, the alliance. It's basically organizations that have a similar mission and do similar work that band together to collaborate, which was pretty cool. Do you have partnerships in your community with other powerhouses that can take your nonprofit to the next level? And do you have diversified revenue streams? I know people love that term. Every time I have a workshop on diversified revenue streams or diversifying revenue streams, instead of just for people waiting for the next grant, they're excited. They're like, oh yeah, we need to diversify our revenue, but and ain't nobody do it because then they feel uncomfortable. They don't know what to do. They don't know what they're doing, and that's okay. And that's why it's important for you to get help, like, and I say, let me type something right quick. And I say that a lot of times the organizations that have an issue with growth and scaling are the ones where the leaders are not developing themselves and understanding their limiting mindset or scarcity mindset is keeping them from growing. So I want you to think about that and think about ways that you can prioritize revenue generating activity because that's basically what I need you to focus on. So start working on that and start thinking about how you can do that. And the third reason, I know I went over two, I forgot the third one. You're not investing in the right skills and systems. Now, that's another thing that I want you to be very aware of is that sometimes you have to invest in the right skills or system because your nonprofit can only grow as much as you grow as a leader. If you're still running your organization, I know we talked about that briefly about the leader's mindset and scarcity mindset. If you're running the organization the same way you did 5 years ago, that's a problem because if you're not changing, your nonprofit isn't going to change because the same person that you were 5 years ago cannot be the same person now, today, who thinks that they're, who's not doing anything different because only 20% of nonprofit leaders actively invest in professional development, and that's a big problem. Okay, like go read some books on leadership, go read some books on strategic planning, go do something. Okay, because then go do something that helps. If you do not have the bandwidth for that, hire a consultant to support you. Okay, now nonprofit success isn't just about the hard work, it's about strategy, leadership, and systems. So if you do not have like good leadership in your organization, great systems to ensure that your nonprofit is going in the right direction, and a strategy for success, it's going to cause a lot of issues in your nonprofit organization. And if you don't know how to build a sustainable funding model, that's going to be another issue within your nonprofit organization, because you're just depending on whatever money comes your way and drops at your door. And that's not good enough. If you don't know how to attract and retain major donors, that's another problem, because you're always chasing the next dollar, and that's not good, right? If you don't know how to automate systems to save time and scale, that's another issue. So if you have a small team and you know you need some systems or some automation to ensure that you are getting more work done, why don't you go learn it? Right? You're sitting there talking about, oh, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that. Go learn how to automate. Like, or go hire someone to automate the things for you. Like, if you know what systems you need, okay, I need to connect my subscriber list, or however I connect emails, if it's a Google form, to my email list. Go get someone that knows how to use Zapier. I talk about Zapier all the time. There are ways to automate some of the functions of the work that you do. So you need to level up your skills as a leader, because if you want to be a successful nonprofit leader, you need to always be learning, always evolving, and implementing smarter strategies. And yeah, that's all I got. I want you to fix this by ensuring that you are in a space where you're learning how to use systems and skills to grow. And I know one container I have for nonprofit leaders to do this is the Nonprofit Navigator course, which is going to open it again at the end of March, because then it is 8 week. It's going to be 12 weeks moving forward. So it's a cohort. So cohort 2 is going to open soon. And one thing that's going to happen, teach you how to create systems, such as having SOPs for your organizations. And then if you have questions or need to automate, definitely it's something that you can let me know in the Facebook support group, so I can do a live or a presentation or send you a recording on how to do that. But anyways, you get the support that you need to build these systems and create the strategies that you need. And I do it with you, where you go through the course. It's a self-paced course. You go through the course, create the documents that you need, and you have the support, the Facebook support group, and the 2 live Q&A sessions where any questions you come with, I answer for you. Now, for that Nonprofit Navigator course, it's $997, considering the level of support and the live sessions. So if you're interested in being part of the second cohort, drop the word navigator in the comments, and I will make sure to jot down your name and reach out when I open the list for that. So definitely let me know in the comments. Now, before I close, I want to say that you have to stop waiting for someone to come and save you and your nonprofit. You essentially need a strategy. You need systems. You need to start operating like your organization deserves funding and is making an impact. You need that yourself. You need to stop waiting for someone. Nobody's going to come and save you. Nobody's going to come and save your organization. You need to start taking impactful, intentional and strategic action to make that happen. Now, like I said earlier, you can definitely book a strategy session to work with me. It's a 90-minute session. We develop a strategy for you to work on your immediate goals for the next 3 to 6 months. And you get an action plan, and your email, you get a PDF action plan, and you get the recording of the session, and you get to work. So you get the level of support that you would get with me working with you as a consultant, but it's condensed, where I work with you for 90 minutes, you and your team for 90 minutes, let you know exactly what you need to focus on, and you get to work. So if that's something you're interested in, I definitely recommend that you go in the comments and schedule, or in my Stamp Store, and book a strategy session, because that's definitely something your organization may need, and it's the best way to start working with me, especially if you would like to explore working with me before hiring me on a retainer for your organization. organization. So if you have any questions about anything discussed today, definitely reach out to me in the DMs or via email and let me know. But it was a pleasure being here, and I hope you have an amazing Thursday. It's already the end of the week. Can you believe it? Anyways, have an amazing Thursday, and thank you so much for catching this. Bye, y'all.